Hi, I'm Leon Shaw, the founder of Audio Advice. In today's video, we're taking a look at some of our favorite speakers from Ariel Acoustics. After 22 years at ADS speakers in the 70s and 80s, Michael Kelly left the audio industry to get his master's at MIT. Like many people in the business, audio stays in your blood, so he founded Ariel Acoustics with David Marshall, a co-worker from his days at ADS. Back in 1991, when Michael showed up with a prototype of his first speaker, the 10T, I took a serious listen and advised Michael I loved everything except the treble seemed a little too forward. Interestingly enough, a few months later, Michael came back with a revised version of the 10T and we just loved it. After everyone listened to it for about a week, we decided to become an Ariel Acoustics dealer. The 10T became an instant success at Audio Advice, and later, in 1996, was awarded Speaker of the Year by Stereophile magazine. The 10T had a look, though, that shall we say was not exactly visually pleasing to most people. So Michael set out to design speakers with a more normal appearance, which resulted in the 7, 6, and 5. These models have evolved tremendously over time and are the subject of today's video, along with their companion center channels. First, I'll go over the great common technology these models share. I'll also get a little bit in the Ariel design philosophy that helps endear their sound to so many music lovers. And finally, I'll do an overview of the individual models to help you understand which one might be the best fit for your system. If you want to read the full article on Ariel Acoustics, be sure to click the link in the description that will take you to the full review on our site. Along with this review, you'll find hundreds of other reviews, comparisons, buyer's guides, and much more. Now let's get started. Having known Michael Kelly for almost 30 years, I've learned he is an absolute perfectionist when it comes to any and everything about his speakers. When he sets out to update a model or create a new one, it's almost always a multi-year process with lots of testing and listing. Michael and David literally travel all over the world to find small niche specialty companies to make custom components for their speakers and then put them through long-term rigorous tests before they make it into one of their speakers. Almost all speaker drivers are custom made to their exacting specifications from high-end facilities in Denmark, Norway, the USA, or Germany. The same applies to their crossover components, which all use military-grade parts for the purest possible signal path. Ariel Acoustics speaker cabinets are a prime example of the extremes they go to, and the 7T, 6T, and 5T and 7cc all share the same type of cabinet design. Ariel uses a curve-shaped cabinet, which greatly reduces internal reflections. Multiple layers of 3mm thick pieces of MDF are soaked in glue, then bonded together under high pressure for 48 hours in a 20-ton press that applies the curve to them. Since the glue totally soaks into the MDF when it dries and the multiple layers are bonded, you have something far more inert than just standard MDF. Several internal cross braces are then installed to make the cabinet super rigid. In the case of all but the 5T, a separate internal box is on the inside for the mid-range driver. Ariel even uses a specially environmentally friendly glue made to damp out vibrations to bond the front baffle holding the drivers to the cabinet. The baffle and the glue together give you almost 2 inches of thickness. Ariel also went so far as to determine which internal damping sounds the best. It turns out that a long fiber wool from New Zealand sheep offers the best acoustic properties. This does cost more than standard speaker installation, but the sonic improvement is well worth it. The end result for all of these models is a cabinet that is totally inert, and when you go to pick one up, you can sure tell it. Even the small 5T weighs in at 23 pounds each, and the 7T is almost 100 pounds. The cabinets are finished with either a wood veneer from Germany or an automotive paint. Both types receive 8 to 10 layers of hard polyester polished by hand for a speaker that looks like a fine piece of furniture. The Ariel speaker drivers are all pretty special too. The mid-range drivers are made from a special purest blend cone material. Michael and David spent a lot of time developing this cone, which gives them something very stiff and precisely damped. The baskets are a cast magnesium frame, again a far more expensive material than you typically see. These models use a new tweeter Ariel developed for the T series. It's called a soft ring dome tweeter. They use large dual magnets with a damp chamber. Ariel is also all about scientific measurements, and this tweeter has super low distortion, can reproduce transients extremely well, and it sends way beyond the range of human hearing. The industry standard for a speaker's response used to be plus or minus 3 dB, but recently I've seen many companies start to stretch these numbers and use plus or minus 6 dB to make it look like their speakers play deeper or go higher than they really do. Ariel has the tightest range of measurements I've ever seen on their specs, quoting at plus or minus 2 dB. That's just unheard of, as it could potentially make their specs not look as good at a glance as their competition. But when you make such a super accurate speaker like Ariel, you don't have to worry. All of the Ariel speakers are also set up with heavy-duty binding posts that allow for you to bi-wire or bi-amp. A speaker crossover's job is to decide which tones go to which drivers and how loud they are in relation to the rest of the spectrum. With the crossover being inside the speaker, you never see it, so it's tempting for some speaker manufacturers who are trying to get a budget to scrimp on it. Ariel Acoustics has some of the best made crossovers I have ever seen. All of them use high quality components like polypropylene film capacitors and low oxygen copper air core coils. The circuit boards are all glass epoxy, and in the three-way designs are even separated from each other for the bass and mid-range tweeter levels. All of the internal wiring is very high purity copper with Teflon insulation. To assemble them, the best audiophile grade silver solder is used. These extremes Ariel goes to means the music passes through the crossovers with almost no degradation, resulting in their very sweet, open, and effortless sound. Now let's dive into the individual models. Ask anyone at Audio Advice if they had to pick a favorite bookshelf speaker, and 90% of us will choose the Ariel 5T. Its combination of sound, beauty, and ease of setup make the 5T one of our favorites. The 5T uses a special purest midrange material for its 6.7-inch driver. If you know speakers, you probably thought, that's an odd size. Most are 6 inches or 6.5 inches. That's what happens when you have a company who custom designs drivers to their needs. The tweeter is the same soft ring dome most Ariels use. The 5T is fairly tall at 15 inches, but is only about 8 inches wide and 12.5 inches deep, giving it a pretty cool look from a ratio standpoint. Bass response is just outstanding on the 5T, bettering many floor-standing speakers with a 2 dB down point at 48 Hz. The tweeter extends out beyond our hearing range to 25 kHz. While we can't think of a better choice if you want to put a speaker on a bookshelf, the 5T gets really magical when you get it about 18 inches off the wall on a very solid speaker stand. They can throw out this huge wide soundstage that is just scary good. If you take the next step and couple them to a very fast subwoofer, you can have a true high-end audiophile level system that appears pretty small to the eye, yet can be as revealing of subtle musical details as about anything out there. The only bad news is, to fully appreciate the 5T, you're going to need a really good amp. They really do not like to be hooked up to a modest home theater or stereo receiver. We really like the way they sound paired up with some of the upper-end Cambridge N-Series, or even better, the Edge. And if you could move up to Mark Levins or Macintosh, you'll have an even bigger smile on your face when you listen to them. For many people with a small to medium-sized room, the Ariel 6T will be a great choice. It stands at about 43 inches tall, but is less than 8 inches wide, so it has this very elegant and slender look, especially due to the curved cabinet. When you think about it, the footprint of a 6T is actually skinnier than most bookshelf speakers on a stand, and it has deep enough bass to reach down to give you great impact in a medium-sized room. Like the 5T, the drivers are all custom size with its 4.9-inch papyrus-braced midrange and dual 5.9-inch woofers. The dual woofers give you the area of a much larger woofer, but their small size mean they have incredible speed and accuracy. Like all of the T-Series, the tweeter is the same here as well. When you compare the midrange on the 6T to the 5T, the 6T is even better. This makes sense as the 6T has a dedicated midrange driver housed in its own internal enclosure. The super skinny cabinet also allows the 6T to deliver a big and wide soundstage with the ability to have the sound extend far outside the speakers. In most rooms, set up right, they just totally disappear. With bass getting down to 35 Hz at only 2 dB down, you really won't need a subwoofer for a music-based system in a mid to small size room. The 6T is also easier to drive than the 5T, but you'll still really benefit from a great power amplifier. To our ears, the 6T combines this neutral, open, and transparent sound with dynamics and bass impact you would not expect to get from a speaker that appears so small. Plus, their ratio of height to width coupled with their beautiful cabinets, make them look just gorgeous in most rooms. The 6T is for us the best value in the entire lineup unless you have a really large room. While the 6T looks small and slender, the 7T has a much bigger and more serious business appearance. It's about 44 inches tall, 10 inches wide, and almost 18 inches deep with a weight of 96 pounds. With a 7T, you get a different material for the woofer as Ariel chooses a special bilaminate composite for the two 7.1-inch cones. And yes, once again, that's a totally unique driver size. The cabinet on the 7T has the most layers of any model with 9 and has 7 interlocking internal braces. The mid-range is a 5.9-inch purest-based driver, and like all of the others has the same great tweeter. You'll get bass only down 2 dB at 28 Hz that is blazingly fast but with lots of dynamic ability. The 7T can present the full weight of a symphony orchestra or a drum kit while at the same time having a super effortless mid-range and top end. In terms of three-dimensional imaging, we actually think the 6T has a very slight edge here, but from a power and dynamic standpoint, the 7T is far superior. If your room is larger than say about 14 by 18, you'll really appreciate the power the 7T can deliver. But if you're in a smaller room, you might be just fine with the 6T. In very large spaces, there's no question though, get the 7T. The 7T does need serious power to give you all of the bass dynamics it's capable of. Many of our music-loving clients feel like it's such a great value they spend even more on the electronics driving them than the speakers themselves. That says a whole lot about how good the 7T really is. The center channels 7cc and 7LCR have identical components in different shaped cabinets to fit whichever situation you need for one of the best center channel or LCR speakers available today. The LCR version has the ability to turn the mid-range tweeter assembly 90 degrees to allow it to be either a vertical wall-mounted LCR or turn horizontally for a full center channel. It is 38 inches long but under 5 inches deep, which means it can work well mounted under a large flat panel TV. The 7cc is more of a conventional center channel in shape, being roughly 24 inches wide, 8 inches tall, and about 12 inches deep. Both models use the same special pressed MDF layered curved cabinets. Ariel developed a special aluminum woofer cone for the dual 6.7-inch drivers, again, a different size. The mid-range is a cross between the ones used in the 6T and 7T with a 5-inch diameter special papyrus material cone. And of course, they all share that same great tweeter. With so much vocal energy being present in a center channel, Ariel mounts the mid-range and tweeter to a separate aluminum baffle, which helps separate their dedicated cabinet even more from the dual bass drivers. The dual bass drivers also allow these two to have some serious bass impact from a center channel, which helps greatly with all the special effects we're seeing mixed into the center channel these days. When you're used to the accuracy and transparency of Ariel's, your center channel had better be up to the same standards, and both of these live up to that task. You'll hear all kinds of subtle emotional details and performers' voices that bring you closer to being there. I hope this overview has given you a taste of one of our favorite speaker brands at Audio Advice. All of these models have a sound that does not bowl you over with anything at first, but just lures you in the longer you listen with their honest and transparent presentation. Another thing we love about Ariel's is how they sound good even at super low listening levels. The model that is right for you will depend a lot on your budget and room size, but every single one sounds fantastic to our ears. If you have questions on any of the Ariel speakers or any other home audio or home theater gear, be sure to give us a call, chat with one of our experts at audioadvice.com, or stop into one of our Raleigh or Charlotte, North Carolina showrooms. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss the latest home audio and home theater content. We'll see you next time.